Good morning, everyone. Again, this is Karen, the Secretariat Coordinator of the PEMSEA Resource Facility, which currently is serving as the Interim Secretariat of the PEMSEA Network of Learning Centers until such time we have already established the PNLC Secretariat. So here with us today are the signatories of the signed PNLC Charter as well as observers. And we also have here our chair and co-chair for this meeting, Dr. Wansok Senanan, the president of PNLC from Burapha University, Thailand. And we also have here Dr. Tsinhua Fang from Xiamen University of China as the vice president of the PNLC. And we also have here the rest of the PRF folks. But before we begin officially, perhaps we can see each other's faces first. We will be meeting each other repeatedly in the next meetings, not just this year, but for also the next. So perhaps we can maybe wave at the camera when your university or center is being called. So I will open the gallery view of Zoom. If your university is called, please give us a wave. Regardless if you're joining from the same room as your colleagues or independently from each of your homes or wherever you are, please do give us a wave. It will be nice to see your lovely faces, everyone. So let's start. So in terms of, I'll be calling each university alphabetically in order. So first off, with the PNLC members, let's see the faces of Royal University of Phnom Penh. I believe Professor Hoy Risi, the head of the Department of Faculty Development Studies, particularly Natural Resource Management and Development, is here, along with Mr. Pat Chandara. Hello, everyone. And then we also have here from China, again, Coastal and Ocean Management Institute of Xiamen University, Dr. Fang. Dr. Fang. And then from Indonesia, we have from Center for Coastal and Marine Resources Studies of IPD University, Payon and Isda. Hello. Nice of you to join us. And then from...
Nice to meet you too.
Hello. Hello, Payon. Okay, and then we have here from Japan, Institute for Global Environmental Strategies, Nagisa-san. Hi, Nagisa. Okay, Nagisa is representing on behalf of their president, Takeuchi-san. And then we also have a number of universities joining us from the Philippines, starting with the Cavite State University, President Robles and Dr. Noel. Okay, nice to have you on board. And then from De La Salle Lipa, we have Vivian Padura from the Biology Department and Science area. And then we have the University of the Philippines, Visayas, Chancellor Clement Camposano. Good morning again, Chancellor. And then we have Director Astrid Cinco of the Macchio Marine Center of Xavier University, Ateneo de Cagayan. Good morning. And then we move on to Thailand. We have Burapha University. We have Dr. Wansok Senanan again as our PNLC president and chair of this meeting. And then we have from Timor-Leste, Universidade Nacional Timor-Leste, we have Professor Mario Tillman here on board. Hi, Professor Mario.
Hi, how are you?
All good. And then finally, we have our observers. Currently, they are in the last stages of approving and signing their PNLC charter in their respective institutions. So first, from China, we have Director Ching Shengchu from Zhejiang University. It's kind of a tongue twister saying all those. Good morning. And then we also have from Indonesia, Diponegoro University. And then also from Udayana University, Chairman Dharmaputra. If you are
Hi, Om Swastiastu. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you. You have a busy schedule, so we're able to join us.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. And then from Thailand, we have from Prince of Songkla University, Director Sakanan Platong of the Marine Science Learning Center. Hello, Dr. Sakanan. And then finally, we have University of Da Nang of Vietnam. We have their senior lecturer on environmental science, Dr. Huang Hai. Hi, Dr. Hai. Hi. Okay. So with that, I hope we had a good round of introductions. If I miss anyone, please don't be shy. Introduce yourselves. And then I think we're off to a good start. Let us take a group photo. For others, kindly turn on your camera. Dr. Hyde. Okay. June, on your count, please.
Okay. Ready, one. Okay, 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
And another one. 1, 2, 3. Smile to the camera. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, June. With that, I would like to give the floor to our chair of this meeting, our PNLC President, Dr. Wansuk Senanan of Burapha University. Over to you, Dr. Senanan.
Okay, well, thank you, Karen. Okay, good morning, everyone. Executive Director of PRF, President of Cavite State University, Chancellor of the University of the Philippines, Visayas, delegates from PNLC and supportive academic and research institutions, PRF staff, ladies and gentlemen, welcome and thank you all for joining the first General Assembly of PEMSEA Network of Learning Center, or PNLC. And I would like to express my appreciation once again for your interest and commitment to formalize the network through the endorsement and signing of PNLC charter. Now the network is formalized. We are ready to proceed with the groundwork for 2022 to 2026 activities. The meeting today will mark a crucial step and provide an excellent opportunity to discuss the near future of PNLC. We are looking forward to your input and explore ways we could harness the collective powers of academic and research institutions in the region. The objectives of this first General Assembly are to review and approve draft rules on election of PNLC officers and PNLC's 5-year operational plans, as well as to discuss the opportunity for the establishment of PNLC's Secretariat. We have a lot on our plate today, but I'm sure that we will have a very fruitful discussion. Without further ado, I would like now to proceed with today's program, starting with Ms. Karen presenting to us a provisional program and timeline for PNLC activity for this year. With that, I'll turn the floor to Karen.
Thank you, Ms. Chair. So I would like to present the provisional program for consideration or approval of the General Assembly. As you can see, we have a number of items for discussion for today. Hopefully we can end by 11:30 this morning. So I am presenting the program, and next up is the 2022 timeline of PNLC activities. As you may know, based on the calendar of activities, we have a number of governance measures and plans that need to be established in line with the demands of the PNLC Charter. So just to remind everyone, we would like to present this timeline for easy reference of the General Assembly. And then we will proceed with the draft rules on the election of PNLC officers. It will be good if we can already have a new set of officers to guide us in the governance development mechanisms that we are supposed to undertake for this year. This will be presented by Ingrid Narcisse of the PRF. And then we move on to the next part of the program. We have some groundwork done already on the PNLC Operational Plan 2022 to 2026. We are not yet presenting, however, the actual plan. These are just the matters to consider, example, the programmatic elements of the operational plan. And this will be discussed in detail by Amy Gonzalez, the Executive Director of PRF. Likewise, she will also present the options for establishing the PNLC Secretariat, whether on a permanent or rotational basis, as well as the factors to consider. And then finally, if any of our PNLC members would like to raise other agenda items, they can do so during other business. And then we move on to closing remarks. So that will be it for our provisional program. Ms. Chair, over to you.
Okay, so next item. So is there any, so I think the program looks good. Do we need to approve this program, Karen?
Yes.
Okay. So I now take a comment or any input on this provisional program for today's meeting.
Wansuk?
Yes.
Yes, Chancellor Camposano here. I move that we adopt the program, the provisional program.
Okay, great. All right. Okay, next.
I second the motion. I second the motion for approval.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we all agree on
All right, thank you, everyone.
the program. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Wansuk, and then thank you, everyone, for approving the provisional program. I will not discuss in detail the PNLC timeline for 2022, as this is the same program, or it is rather the same calendar that has already been shared by our executive committee during the last consultations and even during the PNLC inauguration. There were just some updates in terms of the dates, so perhaps you can look at it on your respective timeline. And we will also discuss some of the timeline actually as we go over the next presentation, such as on the operational plan. There will be a recap on the timeline. And there will also be a recap of this timeline with regards to the election of PNLC officers during Ingrid's presentation. So to give us more time to handle the succeeding presentations, I would like to recommend to the chair if we can move on to the draft rules on the election of PNLC officers.
Okay, excellent. So let's do that. So for the next item is, I would like to invite Ingrid, Ms. Christine Ingrid Narcisse, to present the draft rules on the election of PNLC officers.
Thank you, Dr. Wansuk. Let me just show my slides. Okay, can you all see this?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, and good morning again to all our colleagues in the PNLC and the PRF. So I am Ingrid Narcisse, and I've been tasked to present the rules on the nomination and election of PLC officers, which was drafted by the PRF in its capacity as the interim secretariat of the network. So I'm sure you have gone over the document number 3 for this meeting, but let us just go over the draft rules together. So if we may recall, Article 9 of the PNLC Charter states that the affairs of the network shall be administered by a president and vice president, both of whom will be nominated and elected by the General Assembly and will serve as chair and vice chair, respectively, of the General Assembly. And Article 9 also states that the president or the vice president, in his absence, will also represent the PNLC before the major meetings of PEMSEA, as well as other relevant meetings and fora. The Charter, however, has limited provisions. on the nomination and election process itself. So this draft set of rules are herewith proposed by the PRF, building on the provisions stated in the charter, and also referring as appropriate to some provisions of the rules for the PEMSEA Network of Local Governments, or the PNLG, which were adopted in 2013. So the rules for the nomination and election of PNLC officers begins by highlighting that the officers will be nominated and elected by the General Assembly. And in terms of the term of office, Article 9, Paragraph 2 of the PNLC Charter states that the President and Vice President will hold office for a term of 3 years or until such time that their successors have been duly elected. And no member will be nominated and elected to hold any officer position for more than 2 consecutive terms. So that's 2 times 3 would be a maximum of 6 years for an officer. And in terms of qualifications, the officers should be nominated and elected for their personal knowledge, skills, and experience as members of the academe and or research institutions. And specifically, they should possess the following qualifications. They should hold any of these positions, which include being president, rector, chancellor, board member, director, or any senior management position within their respective PNLC member institutions. They should also have demonstrated track record or experience in leadership and advisory services, as well as in research and capacity building. And they also should have knowledge, skills, and experience in coastal and marine sector management, and has achieved international standing. In addition, the nominees should have business level proficiency in the English language, as this will be the language used in the correspondences and also in the General Assembly, or they can be regularly supported in their work as PNLC officers by an assistant from their respective institutions who is well versed in the English language. And of course, they should be able to perform the functions required of their respective posts. And in terms of the functions of the PNLC President and Vice President, so as already mentioned, they will serve as Chair and Vice Chair respectively to facilitate the decisions of the General Assembly. And we have here in the yellow box the main responsibilities of the General Assembly, which include establishing the policies and programs that are designed to fulfill the goals and objectives of the PNLC. So this would include the Code of Conduct, the operational plan, and the financial sustainability plan for the network. The General Assembly is also responsible to establish the PNLC Secretariat and guide, sustain, and monitor their work. In addition, the General Assembly will approve the annual work programs, budgets, and projects, and also elect the new PNLC officers. And the GA would be responsible for amending or conducting legal interpretation of the charter when necessary. So in addition to that, the PNLC officers will also lead the review of the eligibility criteria, documentary requirements, and process for the application and screening of new applicants for membership when these are needed. So when we have new applicants. And as previously mentioned, the president, or in his or her absence, the vice president, will represent the PNLC before the major meetings of PEMSEA and other events and fora. And they will also present the annual accomplishments of the PNLC to the East Asian Seas Partnership Council and the EAS Congress during their term. Please note, so it seems a lot, but please note though that the PNLC officers will be assisted by their fellow members in the executive committee. So as stated in Article 10 of the PNLC Charter, the executive committee will be comprised of the officers of the PNLC, so the president and vice president, and then the executive director of the PRF, and the head of the PNLC secretariat. And the executive committee as a whole, as a body, will ensure and oversee the implementation of the decisions of the General Assembly. And it will report to the General Assembly. And in addition, apart from the officers of the executive committee, the PNLC officers will also be greatly supported by the PNLC secretariat, which will be undertaking most of the groundwork. So there's a lot here, but let's just go over it quickly. So just to appreciate the support that the PNLC officers will be receiving from the secretariat. So the secretariat will be organizing the meetings of the General Assembly and Executive Committee. The secretariat will also prepare or draft the Code of Conduct, Operational Plan, and Financial Sustainability Plan of the network. It will also help implement or coordinate the decisions and actions made by the GA and the EC. The secretariat will also take care of maintaining the records of the network, disseminating relevant information to the members, taking care of the financial transactions, preparing the status or progress reports, publishing the accomplishments of the network, and performing other duties that may be prescribed by the executive committee. So the PNLC will be supported greatly by the other EC members and the secretariat. So moving on to the proposed nomination and election procedures. So the nomination and election procedures will be basically consist of three major stages, which includes the nomination stage, consensus building stage, and the election, oath-taking, and assumption of office of the elected officers. In the nomination stage, the executive committee, through the PNLC secretariat, shall call for nominations for the president and vice president during a 1-month nomination period, which should be at least 3 months prior to elections, which will be held in June of the election year. So since there will be a 3-year term for the officers, we will have the election year every 3 years. And elections will be held in June. So this can be during the General Assembly, or if it falls in June, or a special assembly if the GA is held in another month. So for example, if so we have elections in June, 3 months before that, sometime in March, the call for nominations will be made, and it will run for 1 month. So each PNLC member may nominate one candidate for president and vice president, and they should submit the nominations in writing, addressed to the executive committee, and sent to the PNLC secretariat. So they should be stating the name of the candidates and the position for which the candidates are nominated. Okay. And then the PNLC secretariat, upon receiving the nominations, will notify the nominees and secure their consent for the post. And if a person is nominated to more than one position, the secretariat will give the person the option to consent to only one position. So following that, the consenting nominees shall be declared as candidates and shall be required to provide their CVs to the PNLC secretariat. So after that, the PNLC will be circulating the CVs of the candidates to the members. and consult with all the PNLC members via email to promote consensus on a single candidate for each position. So we will require 50% members to establish consensus. And if more time is needed, additional consultations via email will be undertaken until the members arrive at a consensus on a single candidate for president and a single candidate for vice president. After which, the PNLC Secretariat shall submit the names of successful candidates to the Executive Committee and inform the candidates accordingly that they have been the candidates by consensus, and also inform the members, other members, on the results of the consensus voting. Following that, the successful candidates shall be formally elected in June of the election year during the GA or Special Assembly. So this is the formal election of the two candidates. And during the same assembly, the incumbent officers, the current president and vice president, will administer the oaths of office to the incoming officers. And then the incumbent officers who are chairing the current assembly will remain in office until that general or special assembly is closed. So after which, the incoming officers shall be assuming office. So this is the default and ideal situation. But what if there is a vacancy in the officer positions, or there is a failed election, for example? So Article 9 of paragraph 3 of the PNLC Charter states that an office will be declared vacant in the event that an officer no longer represents their respective center in an official capacity, or dies, or becomes incapacitated, or resigns, or his or her respective center ceases to be a member of the PNLC. So the office will be declared vacant. On the other hand, a failed election shall mean that there were no nominees secured, so there were no nominations during the 1-month period, or there was no consensus. No consensus was reached within the indicated deadlines. So there are two cases: a vacancy or a failed election. So the PRF has proposed guidelines in the event of different scenarios of vacancy or failed election. So in this case, let us look first at the event of a vacancy or failed election for one post. So either the post of the president or the post of the vice president. So at one time, just one vacancy or failed election for one post. And let's look first in the case of vacancy. So again, the PNLC Charter stipulates that in the case of a vacancy of the president's post, the vice president will automatically assume the position for the remaining period of the term, which means that the post of the vice president will be vacant. So in this case, the vacancy of the vice president's post will be filled for the remaining period of the term through appointment by the executive committee of the network. So section 2.16 in the document, the draft rules, indicates the rules for the appointment process of the vice president and the assumption of office of the new officers. So this, I highlighted it here since we will be referring to this section 2.16 also in subsequent slides. So this is the rule for the appointment process of the vice president and also the assumption of office of new officers. Okay, so in the case of vacancy of the VP position, So there will be consultations within the executive committee to determine the appropriate as well as the qualified individual for the position. And then the prospective appointee should be consulted in order to get his or her consent to fill in the vice president position. And within 1 month from the vacancy, the executive committee should organize a meeting that will facilitate the oath taking of the new officers. So that means the newly appointed VP and the new president, which was the former VP. And the oath taking will be administered by the head of the PNLC Secretariat. Okay, and the new officers will assume their posts immediately after the EC meeting. And then the PNLC Secretariat will share the news and also share the CV of the new vice president to the PNLC members. So it's just the vice president since they already know the new president, which is the former. Okay, so this is the case for a vacancy of the president's post. So in the event that that person retires or leaves the institution or other scenarios. So in case of a failed election for the position of president, the newly elected vice president shall automatically assume the post of the president for a 3-year term. Okay, so we go through a consensus building process for both posts. So there's a possibility that we get consensus for the vice president, but not for the president. So in this case, there will be a failed election. So the newly elected VP shall automatically assume the post of the president for the full 3-year term. And then the vacated post for the VP shall be filled in by appointment, using the same process indicated in section 2.16, which is this one. Okay, so what if there are vacancies for both positions? Like in the event that both the president and vice president retire on the same year, on the same period. So in that case, the executive director of the PRF shall immediately fill in the vacated post of the president and serve as officer in charge or acting PNLC president in the interim until such time that the new officers are formally elected. So in this case, the election will follow will be similar to the default process that I presented earlier. So there will be a nomination, call for nominations for both president and vice president, and then consensus building process, and then the election oath taking and assumption of office. There are just some differences which I highlighted here with another color. So instead of waiting for June during the election year, the nomination will be done as needed, either during the targeting an election date, which can be either the annual General Assembly or a special assembly that can be held solely or maybe not for the purpose of the elections, whichever of the two options is feasible and will come earlier. So for this scenario, it is not the election year, so the election does not necessarily need to happen in June. Okay, so it will be the same process of consensus building and then election and oath taking during that General Assembly or Special Assembly. And the oath of office will be administered by the head of the PNLC Secretariat. So in the default case, it's the incumbent officers who administer the oath. But in this case, since the positions are vacant, it will be the head of the PNLC Secretariat, which will administer the oath of office. So we hope we can still follow. So I think this is my last slide. In the event of failure of elections for both posts, so meaning There were no nominations for both posts, or there was no consensus for president and vice president. In that event, the incumbent officers, both the president and VP, shall continue serving in their respective posts for another 3-year term, provided that they have not exceeded the term limit yet, which means that 2 consecutive 3-year terms, and also provided that they agree to the term extension and still meet the qualifications for their respective posts. Okay. And in the event that the incumbent president is incapacitated to continue in the role, the VP, should he agree, of course, shall automatically assume the position of president. So in this case, we again use the same rules in section 2.16 to fill in the vacated post for the VP. On the other hand, if it is the vice president who is incapacitated to continue in his role, a new vice president shall be appointed, again using the same rules indicated in section 2.16. Now, in case both incumbent officers are incapacitated to continue their roles, or the election of the first PNLC president and vice president fails, the executive director of the PRF shall automatically assume the post of president, whereas the position of vice president shall be filled in by appointment, again using the same rules in section 2.16. So I hope I have not confused you with this presentation, but basically the nomination and election process is quite simple. So it just follows the nomination process, the consensus building process, and of course the formal election and oath taking. They're just like additional provisions in the event of various scenarios of vacancy or failure of elections for the posts. So thank you for your attention. And we would like to request the General Assembly to review the proposed rules and also approve the proposed rules if acceptable during this meeting. And I and other colleagues from the PRF will be very happy to address any questions or clarifications with regard to this. So this is all from me, Madam Chair. Back to you, Dr. Wansuk. Thank you.
Thank you, Ingrid, for the presentation. Now I would like to invite input from our colleagues here. If any, and we could go, the documents we are talking about is number 3, I think. So does anyone have, and we could, go through sections of it, or, and I hope you have looked into the document. Okay, any input at this point?
That's good.
Okay, so will we approve the document? And if there's any issues that arise later on, Ingrid, would there be a chance to, and I assume that it wouldn't be changing sort of significant or changing the substance of the documents, but maybe there are some small issues that people come across later. I'm sure that we could accommodate that also, but at this point, seems like we all good with the document. So should I say that we approve, that the General Assembly approve?
Yes, very good.
this piece of document. Okay, great, excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Right.
Dr. Wansu. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. So let's now move to the next item on the program. I would like to invite Ms. Amy Gonzalez, the Executive Director of PRF, to present the issues for consideration on the development of the PNLC operational plan, 5 years planned. So please, Amy.
Thank you, Dr. Wansu. Good morning, everyone. I'm pleased to be here with you. We call it a draft discussion paper, that this is really more, an outline, an annotated outline on the work that we're set out to do. One of the questions that we've been repeatedly asked by some of the members is like, so what is the strategy? What is the plan? After we formalize ourselves, what do we do? And what is the task ahead of this network? Because I think many of you have had individual memorandum of agreements with us, but not necessarily, a collective work program, although there's been some before. So we call this Strengthening Coastal and Ocean Governance in the East Asian Seas region. It's a draft, and it's definitely work in progress. As interim secretariat, we thought we would jumpstart to give also some substantive elements to the work of the charter, having formalized it. So just brief background. Hang on, I'll just put this on. Okay, so one of the main thrusts of PEMSEA is the exchange of data, information, knowledge relevant to our stakeholders, coastal and marine stakeholders, and others, the sustainable coastal development community. And the other thrust is really to build capacity to facilitate the implementation of our shared regional strategy, which is the Sustainable Development Strategy for the Seas of East Asia, which you probably have heard or have helped implement in the past. If not, if you're new to this, then we could also get you up to speed on the SDSC. So we partnered, PEMSEA, especially the PEMSEA Resource Facility, partnered with prestigious organizations such as yours to provide technical assistance, technical services to respond to the needs of our stakeholders, particularly our ocean frontliners, the local governments. So to conduct research, empirical research and studies to help inform their policies and actions and solutions, to train researchers, we have trainers training for programs, conduct regional training and capacity development, also, sharing knowledge and lessons learned from specific experiences on the ground to create, local solutions that have global impact. Always the work is not only, catered to the local priorities and needs, but it is also aligned at the more strategic level at the national and responding to regional and global targets. So we have the 4 regional centers of excellence. We have 15 learning centers in 8 countries. We started, I think some of you as ICM learning centers, and then eventually assist to help and implement the SDSC, our shared regional strategy. Now, when we broached the idea of having a charter, there was a desire to formalize the establishment of a network. So, and then you have the charter, which spells out the membership requirements, and then identify joint activities, hopefully, and then also look into options for sustainability of the charter, because once established, we want this to be really operational and running. And then also, how do we sustain and maintain, with properly resourced network. So key elements to having this charter operationalized is to have a plan. And the purpose of the plan is really simple. It's really just to map out the general actions and timeline related to the operationalization of the charter, and on the network, of course, and then identify concrete joint activities and programs that members can engage collectively to pursue science-based coastal and ocean governance in line with the SDSC implementation plan. We had a 5-year plan since 2018, but it's the last year this year, and then there is a preparation for the 2023-2027, which is ongoing. And this is quite timely because we want, the desire of the PEMSEA Resource Facility is to ensure that there is congruence and complementarity amongst these plans, because each has to be connected. So some components of the plan, I didn't put this all in detail here because you have a paper which shares it in section pages 2 to 5, which has key components with a 5 to 6 year time frame, which looks into the governance, operations, programs, communications, partnerships, and fundraising. I just emphasize here that year 1, and I think Karen has given you the timeline with the clear dates, is that it's a foundational year. So I think Dr. Wansuk has called it also a critical year for us, where we have elections of the next set of officers, development of plans and programs, as again emphasizing sync with our 5-year plan, and then there are 3 general assemblies. I hope you are okay with that. We haven't heard any negative feedback on having 3 general assemblies, although it may well be online, but we will see whether Tangerang is hosting the PEMSEA network of local government forum, if there is a way to have some of us at least, have a hybrid event where some of us could meet. And then in the interim, PEMSEA Resource Facility provides secretariat support. Now, the interesting bit here, I think, is the programmatic elements. And these are all for consideration. We have drafted a rationale, which is really to assist national and local governments, reduce conflicts, non-sustainable use of natural resources through the application of science-based integrated management solutions, including integrated coastal management. It could be integrated river basin management, or it could be other forms of mechanisms. But you know that our foundational mechanism is integrated coastal management. Of course, this has to align with regional and international targets and commitments, particularly on knowledge management and capacity building. And again, I didn't spell it out here, but in the document that I shared, you have the UN Decade of Ocean Science, UN SDGs, particularly 14, but there are also, it responds to other targets that have knowledge and capacity management. Aichi biodiversity targets, the Paris Agreement, the Glasgow climate impact, which is quite interesting because for the first time in the negotiations on climate change, ocean is highlighted, and that they are calling for an annual roundtable on how to harmonize, for example, climate mitigation and climate adaptation programs in countries. And I would like to add here the PREA Sihanouk Ministerial Declaration, which was signed by 11 country partners of PEMSEA and in countries where you are also based. So what could be potential objective? We could, these are all up for discussion, but we thought just to give you an idea of what could be possible is to build and strengthen capacities and incorporate scientific information and input to planning, managing, and sustaining healthy and resilient ocean, coast, and coastal communities. So it's quite a big, a broad objective. And the approach, like I said, will be to work with the PRF to prepare the SDSC implementation plan 2023 to 2027. Yesterday, or the day before yesterday, I think. Yeah, the day before yesterday, we had the first technical working group with countries to discuss, an outline of what should be in this plan. The next technical working groups will have thematics or specialized topics to discuss, and we would like to have some of you, or if not all of you, participate in the planning process as well, or provide inputs if you cannot be there for the meetings. Why are we confident that we should involve the learning centers? It's no-brainer, really, Cross-cutting tools of training, capacity development, knowledge exchange, and science-based empirical research will help inform policies and actions. And so learning centers are very important in the implementation of the SDSC. But these targets and actions and schedule as a network or as individual learning centers are also contingent on identifying, accessing, and utilizing available expertise and knowledge. And so this is where the network comes in, mobilizing internal and external resources, creating new opportunities through blue economy, and putting greater emphasis on ownership and representation of relevant sectors of society. And another one is that co-designing, sharing, and translating scientific and traditional forms of knowledge on sustainable coastal and marine development and management towards more informed policies and practices. And most importantly, it is contingent on harnessing communities of practice and expert networks, a support service to training, educating, mentoring, and assisting and expanding, for example, the coverage of integrated coastal management, or maintaining its effectiveness, integrated management programs, and sustainable, inclusive, and resilient blue economic growth in the region. So some expected outcomes could include, for example, an active knowledge hub for oceans and coasts. I know many of you are members of different networks, but I think it would be good to have also our own active hub. And then another outcome would be strong and effective integrated management tools, people having specialized skills, blue economy training programs, case study materials, advisory and monitoring services. I think jointly with the PEMSEA network of learning centers, Nancy and Ingrid could correct me, we have trained by far around 2,000 ICM on ICM alone. ICM training alone, 2,000 around the region. It's not a lot, but that was what I think we had in a few years of some projects work in the SDSC. And then also having specialized and targeted empirical research projects, providing scientific data, tools, and methodologies for planning and decision-making processes to implement SDSC. Tool that comes to mind is like risk and vulnerability assessment tools that some of you have participated in commenting, drafting, and then also commenting and making sure that it is fit for purpose in the areas that you're working on. Another one is, just to give an example, is we are working with Cavite State University as well as with the De La Salle Dasmariñas University in looking into marine pollution, socioeconomic assessment on the impacts of marine pollution measures in a specific river basin, and also looking at the biological and hydrological assessment of the Imus River Basin. So those are just to give you just some examples of what those are. I know this is still abstract to you, but just to give you more information, we have developed this platform, and you've probably heard of it, and probably some of you have used it. The Seas of East Asia Knowledge Bank, which is meant to be an online interactive platform, that is used by practitioners, local government units, and academe also, and others. There is a component on an e-library. There is a component on state of the coast reporting, the discussion forum, and ICM communities of practice, directory of experts, and certification. So we would like to make sure that this is active because we can create platforms, but then if nobody uses it, then it will remain an inactive platform. So PEMSEA Network of Learning Center members could be users or contributors, or also actively using this as a discussion forum. So the features of the C Knowledge Bank is quite lofty, interactive learning, virtual face-to-face also. Also to provide support to the implementation of integrated coastal management. And at some point, we were also active in guiding on how to develop investments, how to provide market access to our projects on the ground. There's the e-library also, where it's problem-driven with knowledge products, case studies. Some of these are already there, but then some are not active. And one of those portals that are not active are the communities of practice, the problem-driven Q&A, solution exchange, discussion forums, which we would like to harness through this network. At the very least, have a good directory of who's who, in terms of expertise. So this is what we need, direct support from experts in terms of the directories, solution exchange, communities of practice, and the support networks through the PNLC and PNLG Secretariat and others also. Another learning is this joint PNLG-PNLC learning program, where we would like to continue, maintain and sustain a science policy forum, an ICM executive course, and ICM study tour. The ICM executive course, and especially the ICM studies tour, was quite active when we attend the XWOW, Xiamen World Ocean Week in November. And then we tacked on a few of this forum also, like we had one on blue economy, and recently there was something on management effectiveness of ICM, and how to maintain and sustain ICM. So we would like to continue on. And this is not limited to these types of activities alone. Of course, PNLC members could also recommend, how we could enhance and strengthen this joint learning program. I have information here on PNLG members and PNLC, which I'm sure you are familiar because you are working with many of them also. So the other thing is the training and capacity development plan. We had a plan which we developed in 2021. I think this was already shared with you previously. This needs to be updated, of course, to see whether the activities that were identified there are really going to take place in what year. So for 2021, training and learning events took place during the pre-Congress April to November 2021. There is a final report developed by Karen and team on EAS Congress. I've put the website here if you want to know more about what happened. And I'm sure some of you have participated in some of these trainings. And then for 2022, there will be a joint PNLG-PNLC learning event, and I think around the PNLG forum in Tangerang in October 2022. Tangerang, Indonesia is the host of the forum in October 2022. I did not put any other trainings for 2022 because we already have 3 General Assemblies as charter. So there's so many foundational actions that we need to do that probably if there will be training, it will not be network-wide, it will be probably specific to like the Arafura Timor Seas training or the oil spill response training and capacity development programs. But there could be others. And some of you as members could also say that, we are sponsoring this training, or some of our non-country partners saying we have this training that we would like the other members, PNLC members to attend. So watch that space. and targeted empirical research. Just some examples. ICM management effectiveness remains one of our key activity that we would like to pursue. The application of blue economy, of course. With new projects coming into PEMSEA, there will be studies on state of river basin management, which will more or less be patterned after the state of the ocean and coast methodology, but this time on river basins. The application of ICM tools in transboundary marine protected areas. You know, we're used to having the tools in like really tight national and also local government boundaries. Now there's this challenge on how we actually work and apply these tools beyond coast, beyond national territories. There is a planned workshop on developing the roadmap to transition to zero carbon bunker fuels in Southeast Asia and the East Asia region. This is not going to happen overnight, but there is that plan to develop this with a new project that's coming in possibly in 2023, 2024. And of course, we will continue through you and through our projects, the documentation of good practices in sustainable coastal and marine development, which could be developed into, policy journals, articles that you may want to contribute and share to the rest of the membership. So just a little plug of our Regional State of Ocean and Coast 2021. It has a supplement also on COVID-19. And then it's available on PEMSEA.org. We also have the PEMSEA story, 28 years of collaboration. Of course, PNLC is featured there prominently. So that's also downloadable. Some of our knowledge products. There are more in our e-library, but these are the recent ones that we launched in December. So just questions for the General Assembly. We don't have to take this one by one. I don't know how the chair plans to do this, but it would be good if we could get some feedback, immediate feedback, if there are any. If you have any clarificatory questions on the presentation, are there many missing information that we have failed to consider in this generic plan? Do we have to backtrack a bit and do some more background explanation on PEMSEA and PNLC? Do you have any learning or research program that you would like to be included in the SDSC implementation plan, and the role in implementing this plan? Are you willing to share information in a guided reporting template on your respective projects supported by other entities as part of your contribution to SDSC implementation, and also other key elements that we should consider in developing scoping exercise to concretize this plan? Again, this is a dummy. Feel free to critique, and also, because we want this to be a strong plan that is supported and owned by the network. Thank you. Over to you, Madam Chair.
Well, thank you, Ms. Amy. This is probably the meeting today is like the meat of the meeting today. So I would like to invite PNLC members or observers to provide input, and it could start by any specific comments or things you'd like to share with the group on existing research and ongoing activities that could be complementing what PRF has been doing, and what we could sort of harness the collective power there. Anybody like to start?
Dr. Wansuk.
Yes, Dr. Fang, go ahead.
Good morning. Thank you, Amy, for this presentation. Just one thing come to my mind is that since this is the operational plan for the next 5 years or 4 years, and so I'm wondering, do we have, should we include the plan to encourage more members for our network? I have not heard, and I'm trying to check the document, and since we are now, I'm not sure, maybe in this stage we are thinking more about the network level, the activities, but I think I'm wondering to include more members is also an important part for the growth and development of our network. Yeah, that's all.
Thank you, Dr. Fang. Any response to that, Amy?
Okay, Dr. Fang, in the, I did not put the table actually, but in the, under partnerships, I put their renew or review, individual LOC. So I should have specified, you probably also like, accept new members, something. So it's really up to the partnership, but yeah, I would encourage that we solidify, we consolidate, and make sure that the current members are active also, and then yeah, we consider. But we are the secretariat. Whatever the body decides, is really up to you. We will. There are membership requirements already that we could follow, so it should not be too difficult.
Yeah, I think there will be more university or institutions in China that will be very interested to join our network. Yeah.
Okay, so great. Anybody like to share? A good place to start would be, maybe sharing what you see your institution fitting. Yes, please.
Yeah, thank you, Amy. Nice presentation as an introduction this meeting. I just to remind us about the main issues today about the climate change. How we address to the climate change issues in the maybe in your presentation, and also how we can take part as the regional area, particularly the participation of the PNLC in this term. Maybe you can share where we studied and where item we should be instead the climate issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any?
Jan Fitner from IPB.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yes. Should I respond now?
Yes. I was gonna suggest that.
Right. That's a very good question, Dr. Von, because climate change, mitigation and adaptation, climate change resilience, and disaster risk reduction is one of the areas that I think we need more support, particularly from learning centers, for us to learn ourselves or to train others. And there are so many international developments already that some of our members are probably very familiar, others are not. Nature-based solutions, ecosystem restoration, ocean restoration are being pushed as concepts at the international level. There is this ocean and climate dialogue as well. And then, countries are also working on their NDCs. And then in other areas, there is some review or assessment, baseline assessment, the gathering of data on greenhouse gas emissions. We in particular are also going to be involved with IMO on gathering baseline data to reduce greenhouse gas emission in the maritime transport sector. There is no global template yet. So how do we incorporate that in our programs? So such those things as anticipatory. There are so many things that we could use as entry points. But just to also narrow ourselves a bit so that we don't scatter ourselves. I will put Nancy on the spot. But Nance, probably this is a good time to talk about the SDSC implementation plan review and how we are looking at the various components, particularly on a healthy ocean, and what the types of activities, tools, and programs could are we envisaging in the regional strategy. Nance? She knows that I was going to call her anyway.
No, I didn't expect that. Anyway, thank you, AG. Thank you, Dr. Wanso. Good morning, everyone. So Ms. Amy mentioned about the development of the Sustainable Development Strategy for the Seas of East Asia Implementation Plan covering the period 2023 to 2027. And as she mentioned, we had a meeting the other day to discuss the framework and outline of the said implementation plan. And definitely, climate change, adaptation, and disaster risk reduction would be one of the priority management programs that will be covered in the implementation plan. Basically, since the implementation plan would provide like a framework for integration of the various efforts of our partners from national government to our learning centers as well as local governments. So we are still in the process of determining, but in general, what we have in the implementation plan would be, are there existing national action plans related to climate change and disaster risk reduction in all of the countries? And we are certain we have those. And then at the same time, what are the needed support from the perspective of the learning centers in terms of enhancing capacities of the national government, local government? What are the available tools that you have in place in your respective universities, the researches that you are doing that would help inform policy and decision making? So definitely the learning centers will have a very critical role in the development of the implementation plan. And as Ms. Amy mentioned, we will be engaging the network in very focused discussions related to climate change and disaster risk reduction. So that would be the venue for you to share what you are implementing and what researches, what available tools that you have, what are your plans in the next 5 years. And at the same time, we will try to consolidate what the national government and local government needs. So we will see the integration, where are we going to meet in terms of knowledge sharing, capacity development, and so on. And incidentally, we also have our Regional Center of Excellence, the Institute for Global Environmental Strategies, which specializes on climate change, adaptation, and DRR. And so they can also provide the necessary expert advice and support to our network if there are areas that there are gaps that we are foreseeing that needs to be addressed in the next 5 years. So that, in a nutshell, our plan in developing the implementation plan. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Nancy. Any?
Yes.
Dr. Mario, please.
Yeah. Thank you for the time, and thank you for the nice presentation from Amy. So I have a question for you, Amy. How about the PRF to support the the PNLC other side, but you know that the PNLC is the network for the ICM learning center in every university. So have you any program to support the ICM learning center in each university for the future, and how the kind of the support for the financial system for ICM learning center? Thank you, Amy.
Thank you for that good question, Dr. Mario. Just good timing, because, and Ingrid can also expound on this. We have asked for a meeting, and I think we'll have a meeting soon with the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries in Timor-Leste, because we would like to continue. Remember, we had this big project, SDSC Scaling Up, which concluded in 2020. And in Timor-Leste, there is a desire, to sustain and maintain, and trainings are needed, particularly because in some areas there are new local government officials, or I think there's been some changes on environmental managers. We will definitely tap your university and others to work with us in terms of continuing training. Depends on what on their needs also. We have, at least for Timor-Leste, I'm not talking about all the learning centers, unfortunately, but at least for Timor-Leste, we got the funding, the support from the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries to continue that work through PRF and through PNLC. Inks, you may want to have some more details on this if you have, just to concretize it a bit.
Yes, AG, thank you. And thank you for the question, Prof. Mario. So just for the information of other members of the PNLC, just to put that into context. So we are fortunate to have the strong support and commitment of the government of Timor-Leste for the implementation of the SDS-SEA. And they have expressed this in a concrete manner by providing financial contribution for the implementation of the SDS-SEA. So they have provided this commitment to give financial support annually. And considering, so AJ, is it okay to mention the amount? So they provide
Sure.
Their commitment is to provide at least $100,000 annually to support PEMSEA activities. And recognizing that commitment, the Partnership Council also committed to use those funds primarily to support capacity building and on the ground implementation in Timor-Leste. So considering that, following the receipt of the funds for this year, we are in the process of developing a program with MAF for the use of those funds to support activities at the national and local levels in Timor-Leste. So we have yet to meet to discuss the details of those, but it will include activities related to the promotion and adoption of the draft National Ocean Policy, preparation of an implementation plan for that, scaling up of or strengthening of ICM implementation in the 3 sites that we have there, scaling up to another prospective area or possibly more. So we have yet to develop this, and we have specifically proposed to engage the learning centers in Timor-Leste in the development and implementation of these activities. So there are many opportunities for us to continue working with UNTL and also with UNITAL. So we will keep you posted and engaged in the process of Prof. Mario. Thank you very much. Back to you, Dr. Wansoo.
Yeah, thank you, Ingrid. Very insightful information. And I also, could see the opportunities from connecting with other international organizations also, with PEMSEA being one of the player. I think having this network is helping the visibility of our institution to those organizations. For example, recently, I think UNDP is having a program on climate change adaptation, and this is in Thailand case, and they also sort of revisiting the vulnerability assessment to climate change and the helping local governments to develop some climate change adaptation plan. So the groundwork that PEMSEA has done in Thailand on climate change adaptation plan for Sansuk municipality in Chonburi, I think it's going to provide some model for this UNDP program in Thailand. So that is an example that we could, partner or build on what has been done in the past. So I think there's some, opportunity like that. It may not become as a big sum of money at the moment, but I think it's will get us started, and having the foot in the door of international kind of network is helping. Anyway, so any other comments, input? This is great. This is
Dr. Wansuk?
Yes.
It's me again. Yes. Yeah. I perhaps you can also share, Dr. Wansuk, the efforts of Burapha University to leverage funding through your own research in support of our ICM sites in Thailand. I understand that the university has developed some kind of proposal,
yes,
and submitted, yes, to government.
Yes. In Thailand, there's a research fund called Fundamental Fund, and the Burapha University recognized this collaboration and the value of the groundwork that we've been doing in the past 3-4 years to build on that, and sort of the ICM Learning Center at Burapha developed a proposal and get funded for maybe $200,000 for this year to conduct a number of research and continue the work on ICM implementation. And what the government is looking for is on the ground, working with communities. And it doesn't have to be, so complicated. It could be simple things that we do, but sometimes it's the bridging between the academe policy arena to the local governments, because they have very limited capacity, and the learning centers could be of great help to them to bridge that kind of interest, international interest and local interest. So Burapha University was able to secure some funding to continue the work, and that's sort of and we sort of use this connection as a justification, and I think the university sees that as our contribution to the SDG 14 implementation effort at the university level. So yeah, so I think, and I could see some opportunities at a regional level also, and this is just one in our country, but I'm sure that at this moment in time, everyone's want to connect to local governments and local community, especially from the international organizations. Okay, so, right. Anybody wants to have stories like that to share that may sort of inspire discussion this morning?
Dr. Wansuk, I think on the chat box, we have Professor Fat of Royal University of Phnom Penh, and his suggestion is if we could have specific communication strategy and stakeholder engagement in the operational plan. Again, in the paper that was circulated to you in the various components, there is a communications component there. So yes, I'm glad that people are of the same minds already in terms of what should be and how to operationalize the plan. Yeah, thank you for that suggestion, Dr. Fab.
Thank you. Great.
Madam Chair.
Yes, please.
Yes. This is Chancellor Camposano from UP Visayas. Well, first, I would like to congratulate PRF for its excellent work on the operational plan, the draft operational plan. As you know, we at the UP Visayas, we are very much invested in fisheries, marine fisheries and ocean sciences. And we have a strong program in marine biology. And perhaps maybe by way of a general comment, I'm really quite happy to be part of this network because I am convinced that this is, through this collaborative work that we have, we can actually advance our research agenda and also, of course, strengthen existing academic programs. UP Visayas, by the way, is a professional master's in tropical marine ecosystems management. And we provide that for, not really, it's targeted at people in government and civil service, nonprofits, and hopefully we can also engage many of our partners here in promoting this academic program. Also, there are some interesting developments, of course, here in the Philippines. As you can see, this year is the year when the Supreme Court ruling, the Mandanas ruling, actually will take effect, which will make available new resources, additional resources for local governments. And because of our archipelagic nature, many of their local governments actually are, in coastal environments. And this kind of engagement hopefully will allow us to maybe craft new approaches that will mobilize those additional resources that will be available to many local governments. That's always a challenge here in the Philippines. For example, there is such a thing as a People Survival Fund, but the utilization of that fund by LGUs is quite limited, mainly because they also lack the expertise. And I think that regional collaborative efforts, networks like this, could help strengthen our LGUs. We should no longer think of our local government units as just Philippine local government units, because they're really just part of this whole area that we are operating in. The peculiar location of the Philippines, really, we are at the forefront of the whole issue for sustainable development. We are very much in the middle of all of this, and so we are very thankful for this network, and we hope to be able to play a significant role in strengthening this, and maybe also we look forward to exploring partnerships with our colleagues, whether it's Timor-Leste or Thailand, wherever in Southeast Asia. So thank you again for this initiative and for the hard work that the Secretariat has put in. I think it's really quite timely that we get our acts together, and perhaps because this is our very first General Assembly, it's really quite meaningful that we are having this kind of discussion. Maybe this is not yet the time for us to work on specifics, but I think that the general items are already here, and my understanding is that we are really endorsing this operational plan for consideration. So having said that, again, thank you, and pleasant good morning to everybody, and to you, Madam Chair, Dr. Wansup.
Yes, thank you very much. We well, thank you. We value this network, and it seems like there are a lot of interest in intellectual exchange, strengthening what we already have, and possible collaboration between or among individual institutions. Okay, well, thank you for that. Anyone else would like to share some thoughts, share what they're doing on the ground to be included in the plan? Some specific comments about the hubs. That was, to me, that was very intriguing. The online platform, and it's now seems like the era of online learning and exchange. It seems like we could contribute and build on or exploit that kind of arrangement. And with the online, there's great opportunities. Although we would like to meet in person, but there are a lot of things we could do in an online platform. All right. Let's see. Any more comments? And if not, we will move on to the next item, and we could always come back to any more ideas if we have, and it could be even after this meeting. But I'd like to give time to think about the PNLC Secretariat. And I would like to invite Ms. Amy again to present the options and points on the establishment of the PNLC Secretariat. Please, Ms. Amy.
Yeah, sorry, you're getting, like it's like buy one, take one. So it's me again. Just to comment on Chancellor Camposano's very positive and encouraging remarks, zeroing in on resource mobilization. Because when we were developing this PNLC as a network and the charter, one of the more contentious issues was whether we actually have membership fees, or how are we going to fund ourselves, there will be. So in the end, we decided on a diverse mix of funding source, but no mandatory membership fee. So your comments on what could be potential sources of resource mobilization, and at the same time helping LGUs avail of that funding on the ground, would be very much welcome. There are some other points that you also shared, which I will touch on my presentation. Oops.
I believe, Amy, we also have here a question from Cavite State University.
Oh, okay.
From Prof. Noel Cedigo. He is asking if there is a possibility of putting up a communication system or portal or bulletin where they can get immediate updates about PNLC.
Okay. For that, we have the MailChimp. We have the monthly bulletin that goes out. We could have a dedicated section there on PNLC news and update. But the CKB, the C Knowledge Bank, we would like to promote as our own portal as well. There are internal and external facing access. I don't know how you call it, what the right term is, but there's like intranet within that as well, which is in this form of discussion forum, which could be limited to the members of PNLC. We would like to encourage that. And probably we could have a dedicated session at some point on the CKB to the members, if there's a desire for that. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes, perfectly.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Setting up the piano. Okay, I wasn't so sure. It was there. Okay. So it's this morning is not just about election. I think you've been loaded with quite a lot of information. So we want to make this as not too heavy as possible, but just to introduce, the PNLC Secretariat, because we have a charter, we have a network. Naturally, there has to be some sort of staff to complement to serve as the Secretariat. Okay. So the background, Article 11 of the PNLC Charter, when you agreed to the charter, it called for the establishment of a PNLC Secretariat, which will serve as the operating arm of the network. It will support and assist the network in responding to the needs and concerns of all its members and the collective. So Article 11.1 says that this secretariat should be established within 3 years upon the effectivity of the charter. So 3 years can go quite so fast. So we'd like to start already with building this, drawing the design so that we could build it at some point. So the Article 11.1 also says that any PNLC member is eligible to serve as a secretariat on a permanent or rotational basis. And then the decision will depend on a resolution of the General Assembly. Meanwhile, within these 3 years, the PRF will serve as interim secretariat. So that's the background. So what are the responsibilities and roles of the PNLC secretariat? Again, it's really like what we're doing now. We're organizing meetings of the Assembly, the Executive Committee. There could be some extraordinary meetings as well. We'll see. Monitor and implement the Code of Conduct. So this is in Karen's timetable. I think you mentioned, how do we govern ourselves? So there's the Code of Conduct, operational plan, which I presented just earlier, and a financial sustainability plan, which will be discussed in the next General Assembly, I believe. The beginning of a plan, Code of Conduct, and the financial sustainability plan. Implement, coordinate the decisions and actions made by the General Assembly and the Executive Committee. The documentation, of course, the dissemination of relevant news, information, and opportunities to PNLC member. So to Dr. Noel Sidigo's question, that will be part of the role of the Secretariat to have this exchange of information to make sure that all members are aware of what's going on. In the charter, there was this processing of payments, donation, and in-kind contributions received by the charter. I think this is down the line when we have the funds, and disperse and monitor the funds as well. Preparing the status reports of the activities, publish the annual accomplishment reports on the website, and then perform other duties as may be prescribed by the Executive Committee. We can revisit some of these functions, but at the charter, this was what you had agreed to. So the purpose of today's discussion is really to look into options for hosting the Secretariat. Do we have a permanent PNLC Secretariat hosted by a learning center or a regional center or a government? And just to give an example, where Xiamen Municipality hosts the PNLG, the Local Government Secretariat. Are we going to have a rotating secretariat that's hosted by the institution of the PNLC president within the duration of the 3-year term? That may make it easier, because you have president there and you have a rotating secretariat. And then, or it could be a rotating secretariat hosted by a rotating PNLC member for 3 years. So not necessarily the president, but another member for 3 years, still rotating. And then a sub-product or a sub-option could be that a learning center or an RCOA can rotate to host the annual PNLC General Assembly in all of the options. So so as not to burden the secretariat so much, we can also have a volunteer learning center, or we can go alphabetically to host the annual PNLC GA in all of the options. So those 3. And then what are the benefits of hosting the PNLC Secretariat? I think Dr. Wansuk and Chair Camposano has, Chancellor Camposano has mentioned some of these earlier. I think I could say that there's a prestige to hosting a regional network, in addition to being a national or local learning center. And there are potential value adds, such as the opportunity to showcase, market the University Learning Center as the Center for Sustainable Coastal and Marine Development, an organization, agency, or university. And more precisely, Chancellor Camposano said that you could advance your research agenda, could also help strengthen existing programs through networking and partnerships with other consortiums or other learning centers or the PNLC itself. There is also the potential to attract funds and investment with some collaterals to the university or the center itself. And then there are strong potential to attract new partners, consortium, or even students of higher learning and provide new and innovative learning tools and solutions. So just some benefits. I think you probably have more concrete ones that you could identify itself. So what are the key factors to consider? Do we go for permanent secretariat? Do we go for rotating secretariat? These are just some ideas from the legal legal side. A permanent secretariat can provide a legal umbrella under which the network will operate. So this is quite important, because if the country recognizes the center, even if it's a regional network, there's a way, with fiduciary responsibilities, take on funds, and then it could spend for the region or within country. I mean, there are some things that needs to be considered there. And a way to do this would be through a special project of the host organization or other forms of permanent arrangement. That could be done either through a university or through a learning center, think tank, academy, etc. On the rotating secretariat, a question would be like, will a 3-year special project be enough to sustain the PNLC operations? So it's a question, but it could be. Funding, and this comes also with some responsibilities, and funding from hosts can come from contributions to the functions of the secretariat by means of financing, equipment, computer, or secondment of staff. Securing funding can be undertaken jointly with PEMSEA, the network itself, and the host through the development of a fundraising strategy, a resource mobilization strategy. Again, if it's rotating, it's the same, cash and in-kind contributions to the functions of the secretariat, but at least it's 3 years, it's not in perpetuity. But then we need to also look into the length of time needed to prepare for such an agreement, and then what happens after 3 years once the host changes. So that's a lot of paperwork, I think. Programmatic, a clear work plan can be agreed with the host with clear delineation of roles and responsibilities. And then the responsibilities in a rotating secretariat, the responsibilities that I've mentioned in the previous page, Article 11.2, there could be some of those that can easily be handled by rotating secretariat. For example, more the governance meetings and stuff, but there may be other responsibilities that will be difficult in a 3-year rotating secretariat. In any case, the PRF is there also, to assist the technical level. Institution, human resources. So the staff of the PNLC secretariat, I don't think we need 10 staff, or it could be like a lean and mean secretariat. It could be deployed for the duties of the secretariat with clear job descriptions, either fully or partially supported by hosts. But still the opportunity to fundraise is there. Now on a rotating secretariat, so will there be staff change every 3 years? Can we have a permanent staff that can work across rotating hosts or presidency? If yes, how will those posts be funded? So again, some considerations on the resource mobilization. And organizationally, secretariat staff should have a separate line of authority from the rest of the hosts of the organization or the university. but of course follows the administrative rules and regulation of the host organization. So the secretariat cannot, ideally, should not be performing functions for the university or the center because it is regional. But those can be discussed basically. So now another means would be to identify the secretariat as a separate project within its organization with its own budget and function. There will be like memorandums of understanding between the host organization and PNLC and PEMSEA to make this operational. Now, on a rotating secretariat, organizationally, having to execute an MOU every 3 years is time consuming because sometimes it takes a year to just sign an MOU. So, 1 year is wasted already. Then there's lack of institutional memory on secretariat functions. And then PRF will need to step and provide more of the technical and secretariat support, where in fact we would have wanted the network, the charter network, the learning center network to own this process. Okay. So setting up, I know I've skipped a lot, and there's so many considerations. You probably have a lot of questions, but this is just to give us a broad stroke on what's needed, a broad brush basically. So first, we present options for setting up the PNLC secretariat. So we agree on the type of secretariat that will be set up. It could be a consensus. Hopefully we can do that this year. And then second, to identify the host, institution, organization, or government that will take this on a rotating or permanent basis. And this will require some bilateral discussions, between the executive committee of PNLC and host. That we could, and then for transparency, we will, share this with the General Assembly. This probably will take 2 years, and actually 1 and 2 could be interchangeable. If the host said, if there's somebody says we volunteer to be the permanent secretariat, then this is our conditions or something. So we can negotiate also those things. And then once the host is identified, once the option for setting up is identified, then we could discuss terms of reference, in terms of staff requirement, establishment equipment, the hosting. Then there will be a MOA for this. Again, this is part of the bilateral discussions. Hopefully all this will come. I think this way this will probably come one after the other, but I think we will be going back and forth to those discussions. And then if needed, we could have an ad hoc committee to guide the setup of the secretariat, including the staff and functions and hosting agreement. And then we have the POR approved also in the next 2 years. The mobilization of funding for the secretariat, of course, it's needed yesterday. And then then we register the secretariat and functions as part of the host establishment also. Then this takes time. Probably we need this earlier. Depends on how fast we could agree on the hosting, and then the draft work plan and budget. So that's the time transition within the next 2 years, 2.5 years. And then, so the questions is, do you have any clarificatory questions on the general presentation? Any further thoughts on the permanent versus rotating secretariat? Are there factors that we have missed? Or probably there are things that we thought might be negative, but actually could be an opportunity? Are there other options beyond what was presented above? There could be some other options that you could think of. Do you have any questions on the steps to establish a secretariat? What other steps or issues do we need to consider that wasn't in the broad plan? Would any of you be interested to host the PNLC secretariat? Probably there are already people who will volunteer. What would be the questions or factors? And if you're not decided yet or are interested, what would be the questions or factors that could help you decide in hosting the PNLC secretariat? And then are there any other further recommendations you may have other than what have been raised in this paper and discussions? So over to you, Madam Chair. You're on mute, Madam Chair.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Ms. Amy, for the presentation. It's another food for thoughts for everybody in the meeting. I now like to invite input from our group. It's a lot of information. It could be clarification questions or any interest or any pros and cons or points to consider further. Oh, yep, I saw a hand. Professor Mario. Oh, you still muted.
Can you unmute yourself, please, Dr. Mario?
Uh-oh. Oops, still. Oh, thank you.
To set up his secretariat. So I think we need to you need to help us how to set up our ICM Learning Center secretariat in each of university. So you know that we have not clear the relation with the PNLC or ICM Learning Center in each university with the PMO PEMSEA in ministerial level. So how you can help us to set up and the secretariat of the ICM Learning Center in our university, and then what position?
Okay. Uh-oh, I think we lost Professor Mario. Oh, he's back. Yeah, could you unmute yourself, please?
Yeah. So thank you again. So you know that we have a very limited person to support our program. So I think we need one or two more person staff to support to run the activity of the ICM Learning Center. So my question is how the PRF think about the mechanized or what the kind to the mechanized to set up the secretariat in ICM Learning Center level. Thank you.
Thank you. Amy, would you like to respond?
Perhaps we could discuss that with MAF when we have a meeting sometime soon, Dr. Mario. It will be a case-by-case basis. I don't think I can respond generally on that. We are still, we have secured some funding to help some ICM sites in Timor-Leste. Now, whether or not that's enough to also beef up the learning center staff is something that we need to to thresh out with the MAF. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
Any
you.
other? Thank you. Any more thoughts on?
Madam Chair, from
Oh,
Cavite
yes, please.
University, Prof. Noel po. Just a piece of mind on the secretariat. I think a permanent secretariat would lend stability to the organization instead of the rotating secretariat, because that would make it difficult. We had other memberships also in other organizations, and it was the secretariat who was able to sustain the whole organization rather than the officers of the organization. So I think it's a good idea to have a permanent secretariat.
Okay, thank you, Professor Noel. That's a good insight. Okay. Any additional comment? Yes,
Chair.
Chancellor.
Yes, I fully agree with my colleague from Cavite State University. I think the permanent secretariat would be the optimal arrangement for a regional collaborative network such as this. I think precisely because this is regional, the members are there's a lot of variety between members. Circumstances of each of the members sometimes will vary. So the plurality and also the fluidity of the situation that the members of the network will find themselves in, I think require that we have a more permanent, a more stable institutional arrangement as to where this permanent secretariat will be. I think that is something we can discuss. Certainly, many of the institutions here will need to do consultations with their stakeholders and with their national governments, because obviously this will require the commitment of resources. But certainly, I think the permanent secretariat, I think, would be best for this network. So, yeah, that's our view here from UPB Science. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Let's see, any more thoughts on this issue? Any interest at this point? Okay, so let's see. So does PRF has enough information for now to sort of work on? And of course, we are in close communication as a network. So any more thoughts and ideas or interest are welcome. And it seems like the idea of permanent secretariat seems like a practical and more optimal arrangement. So if anyone, and you, as the Chancellor said, we may need to consult our respective universities, administration, and whatnot. So any more afterthoughts are welcome. Okay, so I think now we are doing good on time, which is good because we all very, you guys are very busy, have a very busy schedule. So I think we sort of agree on the draft, or at least, do not disagree with the draft, and it's a working draft, which we will continue to work on. The next item is any remaining issues or questions related to the network or the logistics or the plan. This is the time we allotted about 15 minutes to discuss any remaining issues.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Professor Noel.
I just would like to expound more on my suggestion earlier that we have a direct post or a bulletin where we get immediate information. Although we appreciate so much Karen's effort to email all of us, but sometimes it gets piled up and so many emails. I cannot open everything on time, so I get late sometimes getting the information. So if there is a system or any posts, like we can get it on a weekly or monthly basis so that we can get updated on the of PNLC, and that would be a less burden on Karen and the secretary.
Now it's the emails and messages are very overwhelming. Well, thank you. And Amy mentioned newsletter that is a frequent piece of document that get put out weekly or monthly, maybe?
It's monthly.
Okay.
It's external facing, but probably for the needs of this foundational year, we could, we can consider the CKD. There's
I think that
a permanent feature there where members access, or members can access documents from this meeting, on the charter, all the documents, so that at any time, if you need something, then it's in that permanent box somewhere.
That's a great suggestion. Yeah, and it's such, it had a very good potential. I think we definitely should utilize that or use it more often this coming years. Okay, well, thank you very much for the suggestion for communication. Let's see. So there's a comment, right? Dr. Vivian has a comment.
Dr. Fang has raised his hand.
Oh, okay. Oh. Go ahead, Dr. Fang.
Dr. Fang, it seems that your microphone isn't connected. We can't hear your voice. Perhaps you can type your comment or suggestion or inquiry in the chat box, Dr. Fang, and then we'll get back to you, if that's all right.
Yeah, I saw a comment in the chat box, again, the importance of the knowledge bank. Thank you. All right. Oh, we got you back, Dr. Fang, but we couldn't hear you. We can't hear you.
It seems, Madam Chair, we don't have any other comments or...
Yeah, I think Dr. Fang's microphone may have some problem here. Okay, so All right, so while Professor Fang is working on his microphone, any last minute thoughts for this morning? Yeah. Oh, Professor
Hello?
Mario, yes, please.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Maybe this is my last point to ask Amy. I think the rule of my university, they will support us, the PNLC or ICM Learning Center, if we have on statute. So that's why I think I can ask you to share us some reference of the PNLC statute. So we have to establish, to legalize our ICM Learning Center of PNLC based on our university rules. So
okay,
I think this is last point to ask you, Dr. Amy. Thank you.
okay, yes, definitely. I think I got your point. Yes, definitely. We will help you with that.
Yeah,
with the charter.
Okay, great. So we probably now can move on to the next item, and thank you very much for all the comments, and any additional comments are always welcome. Let's see, so we will conclude this meeting with Dr. Fang's concluding remarks.
Hello?
Oh, yeah, you're back.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Wansuk. And dear participants, thank you very much for participation this morning. We are approaching to the conclusion of the first PNLC Assembly General. So taking this opportunity, I'd like to thank you all for your attendance. And I'd like also to thank Dr. Wansu for co-chairing, and particularly I'd like to thank PRF colleagues to organize this meeting. They have worked very hard in the past months. Without their efforts, that were not possible this morning for this event. So this morning we have heard the presentation of the PNLC activities this year and the election rules of PNLC officials, the PNLC operational plan for the next for 5 years, and also the host of the PNLC sector. And these information are very important, and we have a lot of discussion, and we have insightful suggestions from our members, and I believe that will be very helpful and important for the future of our network. And the most important thing is that we got the information from you, is that you value highly our network, and you are very interested in so how we can promote the partnership to, for example, the information sharing and to get upstate from our network. I think that will be a good sign for our network, and I believe that we can do a lot more by working together. So thank you very much. And please be reminded that the proceedings will be shared by the PRF once available, and we will hope you can further input and contribute especially for those have not chance to make comments this morning. And I'd like also to remind that other members have yet to adopt the PNLC charter, and you're encouraged to expedite the approval and the signing process. So if you have any question, you need any help during this process, please feel free to let us know. So the signing of the charter last year, I think has marked a new development era for our network, and now we are taking more efforts to move the network on, and so let's work together to promote the PNLC for the sustainable coastal development in this region. So thank you very much. Thank you very much, and see you next time. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, and thanks to the PRF staff for the work for this meeting. Thank you everyone for their attendance, and have a great day. And hopefully we'll be in touch soon.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay.